Thank you so much because you made the quorum. So we're going to start the meeting right now.
Jean,
Yes?
Mr. Foltz is here too.
Okay, good. All right. I'm calling the meeting to order at 8:40 a.m. on 5/3/2022. Notification of open meeting law requirements have been met. And we need a roll call of members. Nutter here.
Sorgi here.
Lazinski here.
Petrick here.
Laurie Severson here.
Is that everybody?
Yep.
Okay. I need a motion to adopt, I'm sorry, losing my voice, to adopt the agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. The agenda has been adopted. We need a motion to approve the
Motion to approve the minutes.
minutes of 5/5/2022. Is there a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Bob. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Madam Chair,
Okay, yes?
this is Jean. I have to abstain because I was not in attendance at that meeting.
Okay. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. Now we move to item 7, which is the election of committee officers. Are there nominations for chair?
I'd nominate Jeannie Nutter for chair. I think Jeannie's been on the committee, for folks' background, since the committee was formed, but she's also been part of the development. Two big things I think we've had going now over the last year and a half or so is the approval and update of the outdoor recreation plan, and Jeannie and I worked closely with Rob and Abby Nicewander from Regional Planning to get that to a draft for approval from the committee, and then with the effort going on with the master plan for Petrick Park, I think those are two big things that we need some consistency with, so I would nominate Jeannie. Is there a second, I guess?
You know,
Is there
there's no second.
other nominations for chair? Any other nominations for chair? This is the third and last time. Any other nominations for chair? Okay, then. I'm forgetting, do we do a,
Call for
Roll call
unanimous
vote.
ballot.
oh yeah, thank you. A unanimous ballot. Anybody would make that motion?
I would make a motion to do a unanimous ballot.
Okay,
Second.
okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Is that everybody? Okay, thank you. I will do my best. We now need to make a nomination for vice chair, and I would like to nominate Laurie Severson.
I'll second
This is
that.
Jean. I'll second.
Are there any other nominations?
I think I'm cutting out, Jean, but I would accept that.
Okay. No, we can hear you perfectly, Laurie. Are there any other nominations? This is the third and last time. Any other nominations? Okay, is there a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Laurie Severson to be vice chair?
So moved.
I make that motion. This is Jean.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, great. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Thank you. We now need to nominate a person to be secretary, which is a really good job because Becky Arneson takes the best minutes of our meetings, and you would just sign off on what she has written. We are very fortunate in this county to have staff who take really exemplary minutes for our meetings. So, are there any nominations for secretary?
You're over here.
I would nominate Buzz Sorgi.
This is Jean, I'll second.
They started at 8:30. I never got one.
It says 9
Are there
o'clock
any
on
other
the-
nominations?
It says 9 o'clock on the slip I got.
Any other nominations? Any other nominations? Okay, I would request a motion to cast a unanimous ballot for Buzz Sorgi to be secretary of the PTED committee.
This is Jean, so moved.
Is there a second? I can't hear anybody.
I'll second
Okay,
that.
all right, all those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great, thank you, yes?
This is Jean, who seconded that?
I don't know, I couldn't hear it.
Riley Foltz.
Riley, okay, hi Riley, welcome to the meeting.
Robert
Thank you,
Becker
like,
is here
just for my
too.
notes.
Sorry,
Oh,
Addie.
good, okay, good, is the whole committee present now?
No,
Kevin's
no.
missing.
Kevin's missing.
Oh, okay, okay, well, great.
I would
Thank you
apologize for
very-
being late, but my calendar said 9 o'clock, so I'm sorry. Others
Oh,
I've
that's
been
all
here
right.
because I was just passing time anyway.
Madam Chairman,
Yes,
before we go any
Yep.
further, since we've got a new crew here, let's have an introduction of people on this committee so we know who we're talking to.
I know, that's a great idea, thank you, Bob. I can see the committee now finally, instead of Trempealeau County. Oh, now you're gone. Okay, let's go around. I'm Jeannie Nutter. This committee really means a lot to me, and we've done some really fabulous work in the last 6 years, so I'm honored to continue to be on this committee and to chair this committee. I think we have, there's just so much, and we'll hear from Reed, and we'll hear from Mike, and Dave Carlson about what's going on, but some really great things are happening. So that's me. Feel free to introduce yourself.
I'm Buzz Sorgi. I'm a citizen member. I live up in Town of Unity, up between Strum, Foster, and Osseo.
Unity is,
And I've been on the committee since 2017, I guess, so. And we've got a small hobby farm up there, and I'm retired lake scientist from DNR.
It's good to have that knowledge again.
Thanks.
Audie Becker from Independence, Wisconsin. Just got on as a director.
Riley Foltz just got on, so hope to help you guys and improve everything we can and help make this community better.
Bob Petrick, citizen member from Independence.
Kevin Adams, brand new county board member. Hope to help you guys.
How do you spell it?
I like tourism, so this is the perfect thing.
O-T-T-I-E.
Jeannie, this is Jean.
Mark Halverson, I'm the
People
park
that are
manager
there.
at Petrick Park.
Everybody in Independence got me.
Oh, good, Mark's here. Hi, Mark.
Hello.
Jeannie, this is Jean. Could you tell the people that are present that they speak up to their mics?
Okay, yeah, it's important when you talk, turn on your mic, and then when you're not talking, turn it off, because then all of us can, who are outside, can hear what's going on, so. Has everybody done an introduction?
No, this is Dave Carlson. I manage the tourism and economic development programs for Trempealeau County. I'm in week 7 on the job and getting out and doing a lot of stuff. I can share more information on that with you later.
I'm
Good
Mike
morning.
Kornman, Director of Land Management.
Good morning, I'm Jean Galazinski, citizen member. I live in the village of Trempealeau, and I work tourism and economic development with the Wisconsin Great River Road. I am the Trempealeau County Commissioner. Welcome to all of our new county board members. Looking forward to working with you all.
I think we just have Reed and Laurie left for introductions, if I'm not mistaken.
Hi, Jean. I'm Laurie Severson, and I work at Champions Riverside Resort. I've got about 25 years in the tourism business, so I am excited to be on this committee.
Thank you. We're very happy to have you.
Yeah, good morning, everyone. Reed Riley, Parks and Environmental Specialist, Department of Land Management. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody and working with all the new committee members. And I apologize I can't be there today, but at least I'm able to call in and participate. So looking forward to the meeting.
Just of note, Reed is on vacation and is calling in to be part of this
I
meeting.
know, I was just gonna say that. So thank you, Reed.
Oh, no problem. I want to see what's going to happen with this master plan. It's exciting.
Okay, I think everybody, we have done introductions, so welcome to this committee that looks like the room is really full, and I'm very excited about that. Next on the agenda is public comment, so we give about 2 minutes for people to call in at 538-2311, extension 234, if they have anything they want to say or bring to our attention. So we will wait for a couple of minutes to see if people call in.
Hi, Jeannie, on the board.
Yes.
I am Doreen Olson. I'm a regular concerned citizen who has been coming to this meeting for the last 4.5 years.
And we appreciate you and your family and everything you have done to support our park. And we're happy that you're there. Okay, it's been about 1.5 minutes. So it doesn't look like anyone is calling in. So we will move to item number 10. And we might want to put this on for our next meeting because I was hoping Kellen Nelson would be at this meeting to talk about this. He brought this to my attention a couple of weeks ago when we were talking after a meeting that we were both at, and he was really interested.
Jeannie?
Yes.
Let's go to number 9.
Oh, did I miss? What was number 9? Sorry.
Petrick Park Master Planning Workshop discussion.
Oh, I'm sorry.
We have a couple of guys here I think would like to give us some information.
Okay, great. Thank you. Let's move to number 9. I'm sorry, I skipped that.
Our 2 consultants, Andrew Dane and Garrett, are here to go over the master planning process. So we can hand it off to you guys.
Okay. Do you want to, can you pull up the presentation? Sure. Okay. Maybe just introduce ourselves real quick before we get started. You want to hand these down? Yeah.
You want to hit the mic?
Oh, yeah. Thanks. Thanks, everybody, for having us back here. Just do a few quick introductions. I'm Andrew Dane with Neighborhood Planners, and we're been hired by the county to put together a master plan for Petrick Park. My background's in planning, park planning, trail planning, downtown planning, is planning in general for the past 25 years, about half public sector, half private sector. And I've teamed up on several projects with Garrett Perry, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi, everyone. Garrett Perry with Design Studio, etc. Landscape architect. Some of my probably more known work is Phoenix Park in Eau Claire. I've been doing park planning, landscape architecture planning for way too long. Very excited about Petrick Park. This is kind of my wheelhouse. I have a 60-acre farm in Black River Falls, so I'm familiar with the area, and it's kind of part of my family heritage. We used to always come to Blair and Tyler and Trempealeau County to do a fish fry or to come and eat. So this is a little bit of a heart spot for me. So very, very good group that we have here, very diverse, and very excited for the process. And I think we've got some really good feedback so far and some really good direction.
All right, should we dive into the presentation then? And then I guess I just maybe start off by saying, just to go ahead and hit the next slide, I guess. Okay. So kind of things I want to hit on, but I guess before jumping in here, just to say this is a master plan, and I don't know, especially if there's new people on the county board or folks, just a little bit of an orientation, because you know, I work in this profession, and even for me, it's like confusing. So the, you know, master plan is a little different than like the county's comprehensive plan, or I know you guys just got done putting together a countywide outdoor recreation plan. A master plan is typically for like a smaller geographical area, and it's typically 5 to 10 year vision of the future, and it's typically more focused on kind of physical improvements to an area or a park. And I guess the other thing I just want to say about this in general is that it's trying to kind of articulate that longer range vision. As you get into the weeds and you start implementing the plan, you invariably, you know, you get into survey, and you get in, you know, you peel back the layers on costs, and invariably as you build something out from a master plan, it changes and morphs, and when it actually gets implemented, it hopefully reflects the character of what's here, but, you know, oftentimes doesn't look exactly like you master planned it. So just a few big picture comments on this process. Next slide. This is just a little overview of kind of our work plan and schedule, and we're kind of in task number 3 here and getting some feedback on this draft master plan. And then based on the feedback today, our intent is to finalize this overall master plan vision and put together a report. And at that point, we'd probably be working a little bit with staff to just make sure the report is meeting all the requirements that they asked for. And then the next step after that would be likely bringing it back to this committee, I'm guessing, for final approval. So that could be done in as early as potentially June, but you know, it could extend out a little bit depending on how much additional discussion there is as well. But our role under this current contract would be kind of wrapping up here in the next month or so. Next slide. So as part of this process, we actually were pretty fortunate. We had a lot of public input and survey research that had been done previous to us starting the project. One of the things that came out was the 2021 Comprehensive Outdoor Rec Plan. I think Buzz just mentioned that the county just wrapped up an overall outdoor recreation plan. Can you shrink that thing or slide it over to the other side? Because I think there's some information under there. Or just move it. Oh, never mind, there wasn't. I thought there was like some numbers on there or something. At any rate, there was a survey of the whole county, and these were some of the top rated items that came out of that survey. I think that was pretty extensive survey that was done within the last year. These were some of the number one rated items that came out of that survey. And I guess the exciting thing is that I think there's opportunities, really this intersects with almost all of the aspects of Petrick Park, or Petrick Park presents an opportunity to address a lot of these priorities that came out in that outdoor rec plan. Next slide. So there was also a youth survey that was done in 2021 that I believe Reed had sent out to a number of schools and school districts and 4-H clubs, et cetera, around the county. And so there was feedback from that, which we had reviewed as part of this. A whole bunch of ideas and thoughts in terms of what youth would like to see in an enhanced Petrick Park. These were some of the top categories. These were the top categories that kind of get into a little bit more kind of adventure play, the zip line, the trampoline idea, which is kind of like a pillowed kind of trampoline that is, I think I have a picture of it in one of the future slides, but soccer, some additional soccer fields, a gaga ball court, which is just like a little enclosure. It's like a little chicken coop for kids to play dodgeball in. Swings, swimming, basketball court, dog park. Next slide. Garrett and I came out here to sort of kickstart this thing in, is it February, I'm thinking? So we just did a little reconnaissance. This is just some pictures of existing conditions. So in talking with staff and visiting the park, some of the key issues were the entrance and some concerns around staging and safety in and out of that park, especially during the Ashley days. We took a look at some of the facilities and got to tour the park in the winter. Next slide. A few more shots. We were pretty impressed with, I was pretty impressed with the signage and the trails and the boardwalks and interpretive signage. And some of the playground there was some concerns over that, getting a little long in the tooth. That lower shelter is sort of aging, showing its age. And so the future kind of use of that, so, a little up in the air. The Kloss shelters, very nice, newer facility. Next slide. Those lower pit bathrooms, again, were ones that, looked like they were probably reaching the end of their shelf life, needed some repair or stabilization or being rebuilt. Took a look at some of the new boardwalks down the lowland area and then got a chance to sort of walk around the campground and kind of see a little bit of the layout there. Next slide. Look at the horse facility, the horse arena. There's a picture of Garrett tromping through the snow. Got a sense of kind of the scale and of, one of the things that kind of struck us as was just how open that space is. It's not really well defined. It's just kind of like, still feels like a giant field next to a highway there. So part of our effort in this master plan was to kind of give that some more definition, create a little bit more sense of enclosure and make it feel more like a park. Next slide. So we, based on our initial kind of meetings with PTED and discussions, a review of the previous surveys that were done, we put together this draft set of goals and objectives to kind of help frame this overall plan. One of the key ones was, I guess I won't read through all of them or just hit the highlights, establishing a financially sustainable park. So there's an aspiration to do something more with this park, but there's also, I think, a reality check of whatever we do, it's got to be financially sustainable. It's not a huge county. Got to make sure that if you are building something out, that in fact there's a plan to pay for it over time.
And one thing with that is that there's a tendency to hit trends that are happening currently, right now. So it's our job to make sure that we're not doing something that's very kitschy or unique to today's timeline. It has to be a very long-term, sustainable park. And I think the mantra and the background from Petrick really helps us to guide those thought processes. So we're always having that kind of environmentally based outdoor education kind of thought in mind when we're doing it. Some of the Ashley days and some of that stuff is influencing. We got to make sure that we're not, taking the park in that direction. So we're long-term minded when we're doing the plans.
And then looking at this again, one of the goals was supporting the countywide tourism effort, and this kind of, I think, being a joint committee looking at parks, tourism, economic development, made some sense, and some recognition that this has the potential to play an economic development role in the county. Next slide. So some of these initial concepts, again, based off discussion, the prior survey, the site visit, some recent trends. Next slide. So we started off, Garrett started off by just doing some bubble diagrams to start kind of organizing some different thoughts in terms of how this park could be reorganized or put together in terms of different uses. So that was kind of an initial kick at the can, and we actually presented that to the PTED committee and got some direction. Next slide. And as part of that, again, we pulled out some images of and kind of illustrate some of the initial concepts here. This is the Gaga Ball court, just to give people a visual of what that is. Next slide. We had, again, just some precedent images from some other projects that we were, familiar with. This is a zip line. It's actually at a Heckrot Nature Center in Menasha, where I've done some work. There's a concrete steel span bridge that I forget exactly where that's taken from, but a precedent image, illustrating the idea of getting a bridge across the Trempealeau River, and then providing some kind of touch the water, some step down access to the Trempealeau River was another priority that's been brought up. Next slide. Again, these are just, environmental interpretation. There was some talk about formalizing the campgrounds, having some outdoor space. This is actually some images from a park in Lyons, Colorado, where I was doing a project, actually doing a hotel feasibility study, but this park was one that they had just put in a few years ago that I thought had some nice images that could be kind of inspirational for this project. Next slide. Again, wildlife watching was one of the items that came out. Winter recreation was one that came out. The idea of maybe looking at this park and the broader picture, how does it connect to the larger trail system, whether that's like a multimodal trail, bike trail, walking trail, or a river trail, Trempealeau River Trail, which has been talked about. Next slide. Upper left slide is kind of looking at, again, just some elements of a potential adventure playground. One of the things that we're talking about is maybe moving away from that sort of plastic kids playground, or maybe when that thing reached the end of its life expectancy, going in a slightly different direction. And there's kind of two playground concepts we have. One of is sort of adventure play for kids to kind of a little more youth, young adult, just a little more kind of exciting elements, and then another one's more of a natural playground that would be more for younger kids. So that upper left is just an example of what kind of, again, more of an active adventure playground might look like. Again, just some other precedent images to kind of help spark some discussion from our earlier meetings. Next slide. That one on the upper right, again, is another example of what you could do with more of an active sort of play area. That bottom right slide illustrates, I thought that was, I like to canoe the Namakagon River fairly regularly, and they've done a nice job recently of putting in these access points down to the water. So that's actually, I think, a pretty cost-effective access point that they built there that has this like rubber mat membrane that goes over that prevents a lot of the mud, and it's a good opportunity to cost-effective opportunity to improve the access from that lower campground area into the river. The bottom left area again is one area that's one of the zip line concepts that's more on the probably more expensive, more elaborate side of things. But again, it's just an example of kind of what we're talking about if we're talking zip lines. Next slide. We looked at some precedents. One of the things that was brought up early on was the idea of potentially doing a pond in this park. So at one side of that, could just be a very simple pond that's, do a hole in the ground and put in a little bit, some type of artificial natural liner and have a little pond for people to fish on. And then on the putts around it, and then the other spectrum of a pond is more of a full-blown recreational pond with these types of inflatables. And based on our discussions to date, it seemed to be trending, there seemed to be some significant interest in looking at more of a recreational pond concept with some inflatables and things of that nature. I think this is one of the things I think we want to focus on our discussion today is get some more input from this new group on kind of how we're feeling on the pond idea. But this is a nice little example because it's from Plymouth County. It's from Outagamie County, so it's a county-run facility where they just they had a very simple swim pond, and then they just added the recreational element within the last few years. So this is provides a nice example to kind of learn from a county that kind of dipped its toe into this arena. Next slide. And these are, just some other examples. Bottom left here, cabins or yurts or glamping. One of the trends these days is to kind of diversifying the camping experience. So we've talked about is there potential in the future for adding some of those alternative camping options into Petrick Park. And then that bottom right image is sort of that pillow jumping trampoline concept. Where it's kind of in the ground and it's kind of a pillowed sort of trampoline or bouncy area that it could be done in conjunction with a rec pond. Next slide. And then this was another just example. This is a private. These are just the examples I'm probably most familiar with because these are the ones my kids drag me to. This one is more of a privately run facility down in Fond du Lac, slightly, larger and a little bit more expensive. They offer not only the Wibbits, the inflatables, but they also, because it's a little bit bigger pond, offer some rentals, those stand-up paddle boards and kayaks. Next slide. So we went from basically taking a lot of that information, having a couple meetings with PTED, actually an initial meeting, and then Garrett put together some concept alternatives that sort of are how we got to here, so we're just kind of walking you through the process. So we put together 3 different concepts. This was concept A, which had more of a fishing kind of pond in there, in that new 5-acre parcel that is used primarily now for overflow parking during Ashley days. Concept B, next slide, was a little bit different. It actually had a rec pond kind of off to the left there in the overflow camping area. In this concept, we had kind of removed the horse arena, and then we had a dog run over there in that 5-acre parcel.
I think we removed it in all of them.
Oh, did we? Yeah. All right, next slide. And then in concept C, we had the rec pond in that 5-acre parcel, it's just we did have kind of based on some initial feedback and observations. We weren't sure that there was enough demand or interest to continue with that large kind of horse arena there. So, when we initially went through these concepts, as Garrett pointed out, that actually wasn't on these initial concepts. But we took these 3 concepts and then, next slide, brought them back to the last meeting where we met out at the Klosh shelter. So this is just some updated slides from our last site visit where we came out with those alternatives. Next slide. And then we had meetings at the Klosh Center, top left, with PTED, with some other stakeholders that popped in. And then we basically presented the 3 concepts. Then we went to the Wannock Center and actually had some really nice discussions with maybe 30, 40 individuals. Yeah, you were at one of those. That's right. And Doreen was as well. So it was, that was a lot of fun. It's always fun to do these things and in a place where people actually are, instead of trying to do it like at the basement of a county courthouse and nobody shows up. So we got some feedback, and next slide. Kind of based on that feedback, you can kind of see we asked, we gave people sticky dots, to just peg an image that you liked. Doesn't mean that you have to go with these, but just visually gives a nice little indicator of kind of what was getting people excited. I think the rec ponds, some of the zip line adventure play, the idea of doing this more year-round stuff, with like the cross-country ski trails came up. Another outdoor kind of covered picnic area received quite a few dots. And then we were able to get some, just kind of a little bit of a visual preference here to kind of, again, get some feedback from the public.
One of the things that we were pretty impressed with was the amount of winter interest and the thought of ice skating in a warming house. But people were really like, they thought the idea of coming into a place that had a fireplace and then go out skating, that old school kind of thought, was why you see so many dots in that bottom left. Another thing that popped up when we first saw the surveys and we first started talking to people, the horse element was it wasn't really a thought. We didn't think it was used that much. And then people started coming out of the woodwork saying, no, we really want this, it's used. And even additional emails came afterwards that said, it's a very good amenity and we'd like to hopefully have you keep it. So that was two things that came out of it, yeah.
This is Doreen speaking. After that session, I spoke to my brother who lives near the park and mentioned about the horse arena and the horse trails and goes, oh, you have no idea how often there are horses down there and how much it gets used. Mm-hmm. So I think it just wasn't visible to a lot of us.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I should emphasize. We did, not only at this event, but in several follow-up email communications from the horse community. I think that was a good little learning process going through this. I don't know that the county necessarily had a good sense of how much that was getting used, but we definitely heard from folks that they want to see it there. So you'll see in the plan as we have it now, we put the horse arena back.
That's the white area down on the left.
Yeah, that's that white area.
I saw some other stuff in the outcomes of the meeting that they were talking about actually horse camping.
There was some feedback on that too, and it was more like, just with some really simple additions, this could be made more friendly for people to do like tie-ups, to do maybe a water station. So if people did want to come there and camp with their horses.
Is the expectation then they would get to use the trails? Because horses are hard on dirt.
I think the expectation here, that's a great discussion point today, but I think the expectation at this point was that would link to that broader horse trail network that extends to the north of the park on private land.
Okay.
It's
kind of a little bit incompatible with that softer ground over on the east side of the park to open that up to horse trails.
Right,
multi-use trails.
A couple things. So first off, the accommodations for horse camping or bringing you horses and having a tie-up and camping is not there right now. The arena's great, but what they were hoping is a place where they can actually just simply tie up their horses and have a place. They don't need a shed. And they thought that people would probably use it more and bring and do a weekend with their horses. They would love the trails, from what we've heard. We do understand, that there's some incompatibilities. They're a little bit tougher. But what we were told is that if it's, because right now the trails are just concentrated on this side of the river. If there's an expansion to the other side, that creates a larger trail network so that they're not beaten up as much.
Well, we haven't discussed the topic of whether or not the trails are going to be open to horses in the park. So that's something that just we need to discuss. Mike,
before you go on, Laurie Severson has a question.
I do. I think just more of a comment. One thing I think you might wanna consider is the limited number of campgrounds that do allow horses in the state of Wisconsin. So that might be a major opportunity. So
Okay.
just something to consider.
Right? Great.
And just I just have another comment too, that there was a time when 4-H kids really used our park and really used the horse arena. My daughter's 42 now, but when she was in 4-H, that horse arena was used a lot by 4-H kids, which I think we need to encourage to bring back those kids to our park.
All right. Let's go on and do the next slide.
My computer crashed, so.
Okay. We got a crasher.
Yeah.
Crash and burn. Okay.
Crash
Well,
and
enough
burn,
for the
so-
presentation. That's probably
What I will, I'm trying to.
I don't know that it may be okay. I mean, we have, there's kind of, I think it's maybe fine. I mean, Garrett passed out this draft master plan. We got a feel for it. There's three things, I guess, I was hoping we could do in our time that we have today. I realize.
I'm able to reboot now.
So there's kind of three big topics. I mean, and we could certainly hit on anything in this master plan, but there's, I guess, from my mind, there's kind of three big things I'd like to make sure we get through. The number one thing would be just some further discussion on the rec pond, and especially now with I think we've got some new people on this committee with strong tourism backgrounds and some new people around the table. I'd like to talk about the pond. Like to make sure we talk about, there's been some follow-up discussions and emails that we've received from 4-H regarding the desire or interest in having another shelter, kind of similar to the Kloss shelter, that could allow for some expanded 4-H programming, and then finally access. On this master plan, we're showing on number 3, we're showing a pedestrian bridge that would open up additional trails to the east of the park, to the east of the river. In some previous conversations, we had talked about another alternative to accessing those trails would be some sort of easement through the 2 or 3 property owners that own property on that side. That could potentially be another option. And we could certainly talk about anything else on here, but I just want to make sure we hit those.
Well, can we do a present, because now that Mike's back up, can we actually just go through the master plan quick and present the master plan, or the preliminary plan that we have?
Yeah.
Are we close, Mike?
Laurie, do you? Laurie, do you have another question?
Oh, yeah, she is muted.
I got a question. Where's the money coming for all this? I mean, I don't know. I just got on here, so I'm just.
Right. Yeah, so, good question. So as part of this, I guess, so we do have in the slide, we put together some rough cost estimates towards the end. So it would be, for a big project like this, it would be a combination of probably some county funds. You'd definitely want to tap into some grants, state or federal grants. So, LawCon, stewardship, recreational trail aids, recreational boating facilities. I mean, you could tap into some state and federal grants for sure. I think you'd probably want to look at private donations and probably putting together some type of fundraising initiative, maybe some partnerships with some major employers or businesses that could get behind this. And then the fourth kind of pillar for the funding would likely be some type of, user fees. If you did decide to go down the rec pond route, or if you did decide to expand the campground, certainly user fees. So I think it would be a combination of those four.
Will there be a good time sequence too? This isn't going to happen overnight, obviously. So we would go through a prioritization process and time schedule this and fundraise accordingly with the time step And we can lay that out quite definitively, I would think, in the master plan then, Andrew?
Yeah, I don't know about definitively, but certainly, yeah, in the
1, 2,
master
3, 4.
plan, yeah, we would include some kind of recommendations or on phasing, and then it would, but I would say, it would really be up to you guys as a committee, once you kind of have that long-range vision, then, as you're going through your meetings and budgeting, and, then it's up to you guys to ultimately prioritize, how you move forward on this, and, you do it incrementally. This is what we're showing here is a major investment, so it would likely be, like I said, could happen if you get a big donor to come in, sometimes things happen faster, but, this to me looks like a 5-10 year, long-range plan to me. There's a lot more work that would have to be done to justify doing some of the expensive pieces on here. So we're not going to answer all those questions as part of this
It lays out a plan of attack.
But it laid out a plan of attack.
Well, and another thing too is, in a lot of the county parks that we work in, there's this tendency, and I'm sure Bob has seen this, to want to give something. I want to give like $2,000. I want to give $3,000. So this helps to rationalize and create kind of a unified thought. When you get that 2,000, 3,000, 1,000, it starts to be kind of disjointed and kind of not have a theme or a continuous thought. So this master plan helps to have the people on board know where to spend the money and put the money forward. So yeah, I'll take your $3,000 and I'm going to add it to the other $3,000 I get. And then we're going to tie that with other funding, and then we can build a pond, or we can build a shelter, or we can do something like that. So it just helps that thought process.
And later on in the agenda, you'll see that there's an agenda item called Friends of Petrick Park. So that will help, that discussion will help round this whole funding addition out.
I just want to speak to when people are talking about end of life and what happens with monies. A discussion I had with my daughter is that she wanted monies to be given to the state park system, and we discussed with her, your money will be lost in that arena if you give it to the county along with other family members' money. We can make a significant change, and so that's something to keep in mind as well, and that could come with the Friends of Petrick Park.
That's a really great suggestion, because I think, like you said, you probably have opportunities to work with, whether it's, individual, financial folks, or I don't know if there's a community foundation that covers this area, like the greater Eau Claire or Valley, or I don't know. Is there a community foundation that?
I'm aware of community foundations, but I don't know if it necessarily covers this area.
Okay.
There is some foundations in both Eau Claire and La Crosse, but I don't know how far they go.
Okay. Sometimes those foundations, even it's based in a larger metro area, but they'll have segregated accounts or partner up with counties to do just what you're talking about, to provide that. And that provides a nice tax incentive too for people that are, financial, estate planning.
I think
Go on,
one of the
Jen.
areas we want to look at first is obviously the grant programs.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And I think this one would be, there's certainly, this falls in line, like I said, I think this would tick a lot of boxes in terms of a lot of those state and federal grants. And one of the requirements for those grant programs, the two big requirements are, one, do you have a recent county outdoor rec plan? Check. And then two, do you have a master plan? Check. So we're kind of just doing the groundwork, and then it's really about being opportunistic and, as you're moving forward, picking off which of these you want to attack first, getting into the weeds to find out what it actually costs, and then figuring out a strategy to go after that funding.
Well, I can tell you I can help with the pond for sure, because we're actually putting in an 1.5 acre pond as we speak. So with the inflatable, so I can tell you exactly what that's going to cost.
Okay. Well,
And I'd just like to throw out too that the staff are really excellent at searching out and securing grants. We've done a really good job with that work. So when grants are out there, our staff in Bureau of Land Management and the parks people are really, really good at finding those, writing them, and getting them on occasion.
Yeah, that's amazing because I think right now, especially federally, there is literally billions of dollars for the rec area. So
Right.
and those are due to hit here in about 30 days. So I think some of those would really be great for us to get to. And if we've got people that have experienced people that have done that, that is awesome.
Well, and another area where we can access dollars is the Arka Funds. And literally one of the things in the categories where you can use that funding is recreation. And I think it's tied to get, all of the people who suffered mental health issues and stress during the 2.5 years of the pandemic. So, those funds are out there in the county, which we haven't decided how to use them. But for me, I think some of that funding could come to the park because, people really need to have the ability to get outside and do things and have fun again.
Jeannie, this is Jean.
Yes.
And when writing grants or whatever, part of many grants is in kind. So, it'd be an opportunity to work with the churches and the schools and the other organizations for their volunteer time, which would be great, which would also help, connect the communities, all come together, which might end up being another, organization or something that will come. So having that and in kind, is great.
Thanks, Jean. You're right.
I think Mike's still working on pulling up the presentation, but
can we just talk through this in this group? And I know for the people that are on screen, we're having technical issues. Mike's computer is not being able to project the master plan.
Okay.
And Mike's
That's
locked
all right.
out. So can we just proceed with presenting the plan to this group? And I'll try to be as descriptive as possible so that.
Yeah, just go ahead. I think it's important to just go ahead with the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. So just as background, so the three concepts that were shown to you guys a month or so ago, and then also to the public, we kind of came to the conclusion that option C or concept C was the desired or the preferred plan with some modifications. There were things on A and B that were that we that needed to be added in or modified for C.
This represents C, right?
Yeah, what you're seeing, the color plan that you're seeing in front of you is basically all the feedback that we've received and the culmination of that. In addition, the original plans had no thought of horse or equestrian, so that came back into play. So that's another element that was kind of not a big change, but it kept kind of status quo. So in addition, like Andrew was talking about, the 5 or 3 big elements that consist of the park are the rec pond. The rec pond you see is on the 6-acre land that currently is being parked for Ashley Days. The comments that we got from that was the size of the pond was around 1.5 acres to 2 acres. Nothing huge.
Okay.
Something that's scaled to the county. It would have the flotation devices. It would be a true rec pond. It wouldn't be a fishing pond. It would have a beach. It would be an amenity because of the thought that there are not a lot of, unless you go to a pool or go to the pools around the county, this would be something that ties in with Petrick, the Petrick thought, the Petrick mantra, the Petrick idea. But it still gives some fun, it still gives some activity for kids, and it's a swimming element that you don't see throughout the county. In addition, would be the winterist interest of being able to ice skate it. So and then having a complementary building, whether it be another community building, but something enough just to have some smaller restrooms, a changing station, and a place to get out to the pond. So that was item 1 and item 1, and was it 13? And 13, yeah.
13 is just the.
The second element was the camping, the current camping facility. There is not enough demand right now with the amount of rentals throughout the year that kind of shows that we need to increase camping. I think what the thought was is that we need to improve what's there and make it even better. I know Reed's been trying hard, adding trees, adding spaces, but the thought here is to maybe do something smaller and much better. So adding the electric, adding gas, possibly adding water to all of these other camping areas. The area to the east already has that. This would be an expansion of that, creating a road network that's a little bit more defined. It's and more consolidated back off to the north.
I just want to chime in on the campground. So number 8 is the existing sites up there. They're not actually shown with the line, but number 8 is existing formalized campground there to north of that tree line. Number 9 is proposed, and I really want to strongly emphasize this point because we did review all of the utilization data and reservation data from the campground. The campground is very underutilized. The existing campground has low occupancy. So we're showing this here so you have a long-term vision of and as you make improvements, you can, number 9 is essentially giving you that long-range vision. If you add the rec pond, if you do these other amenities,
right,
if you really grow this as an economic development tool and an amenity for the community, this at least gives you a framework to start building out a larger campground. You wouldn't go out and do this as one of your top items because right, number 8, you've got a lot of room to improve number 8 before you get into number 9. But at least here you start to be able to organize, and number 9 also obviously is where that overflow camping is going to occur during that Ashley days.
Right.
Where exactly is that number 12 with the concessions bathroom rentals going to be? I don't see that on there.
Oh, okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
So that's supposed to be right next to that little orange building with the X across it, north of, just by 13. So thank you for pointing that out.
12, 13, okay.
Yep, that was my bad.
So yeah, oh, go ahead.
This is Doreen. On the map, there's tiny little boxes, squares.
Can we just go through the master plan and then we can answer, then we can get done and we can go through all the questions that you have. So, so yes, the camping would, the amount,
jump into that.
Right, just a minute. So the amount of camping is going to dictate what happens in the park. So when the rec pond gets going, when there's more activity in the park, maybe that camping grows. Another element that's tied to the camping that was is the glamping. The thought that we're adding, that there's a potential of adding some kind of a small campground so that grandma or grandpa or whomever has a more elevated element of camping rather than bringing
Could be a little
RV.
Could be a little cabin, one of those little cabins I showed. Could be a yurt.
Could be a yurt. Could be a tent. Could be, who knows what it could be, but something a little bit more structured and a little bit more formal. To the north, even farther, again, the equestrian area stays input, paths surround it. One thing that we heard from many of the people is they liked, so we added berms and pathways along the north-south, or along the western edge next to the railroad. The thought that creates a more of an identity to the park. Right now, when you're driving by, it's just flat and green. Andrew had mentioned that in some of the slides. So this would have an ability of creating these berms and these native areas that really signifies that you're entering into Petrick Park. At the entry would be more signage, whether it's a gateway, whether it's sentinels, but something that signifies that you've reached Petrick Park.
I'm just going to interrupt here. Reed has to leave in 20 minutes,
Yep.
so if the committee wants to hear from Reed today, let him know quick.
Okay.
How much longer do you guys have, Garrett?
I just have 2 more minutes on this presentation. The last element was we flopped the dog park over to near the existing storage shed area.
Number 6.
We expanded, number 4, number 5, we expanded like Andrew said, the existing playgrounds right now are very old and tired. The way of the structured playgrounds is kind of going away. Kids are more, like you see with the Gaga Ball, they're more attuned to active play, nature play. So having something that has more, that is more in tune with today's kids. Number 15 is another glam or another structured parking area. We added, on number 17, we added more views and more viewing access to the river. So that would be some swings, maybe porch swings or something like that, and then some camping area. Number 15, when we do the final plan, we'll work with Reed to show a more specific camping layout. Right now, it's kind of willy-nilly. You just go down there and you take your spot. So we'll have a more defined space for number 15. Number 3 is the bridge, having that kept in place. And then number 2 is making sure that we add additional, basically you add another 30 acres to your park by having that bridge and getting the other side. And then those little pods are the wildlife viewing pods. And that's pretty much.
I'll just add,
What did I
there's
miss?
a couple of little things. Over just north of 15, you'll see some little barbells. There's 3 little barbells around 17 and 15. Those were swings. Kind of, again, we wanted to take a little bit more advantage of the riverfront there, the water, so the idea was to add some swings there, and that came up in the surveys. And then I think Garrett also put in these little squares along the trails. That shows where, is that existing signage, or?
That would be new interpretive signage.
Okay,
yeah.
that'd be,
And the one thing that I'm seeing right now that is one of the biggest things we're missing is the kayak and canoe launch.
Oh, yeah.
So
I was gonna say.
we need to, I don't know why that didn't go in there, but that was in the previous plans, was proposed down by the group camping. I don't think it would be bad if we looked at someplace farther to the north as you go down the trails, if there's a way of getting a launch there too.
Associated with that, what I don't see on here is any defined parking. So we'd want to put defined parking with,
Well, it's just not labeled. In the plan, along the roadway, that would be the complement to the pond and the pavilion. I've pulled off.
oh, that's that box right there?
Those 3 boxes that are in
Oh,
between the
okay.
trees. That's enough for like 30 or 40 cars. So that's parallel parking that goes against the road. In addition, south of number 10, we expanded that parking area. So that would add another 30 or 40 cars. And then even farther south and just north of number 6, the dog, having 10 or 15 car parking spot for the dog park. So
Wherever
there are
the
some.
canoe launches or takeout, especially if we have, people are gonna wanna be able to put the cars there, they land there or start there, or whatever you're gonna need. At
Yes,
least a half
the
dozen.
closer you can get them, the more it's gonna get used, for
so
sure.
you're suggesting down by 15, there might want
I'm
some
gonna let that up
allowance?
to you guys.
Okay.
Well, we're gonna leave it to you guys, because right now, that's kind of gated and we don't.
Well, you
we
just
don't-
wanna be able to drive in, dump your kayak or canoe in, load your stuff and be on your way, or take out and not have to carry.
Does that make some
very-
sense to have a few parking areas? I mean, it doesn't have to be super formalized, but down in that lower
Yeah, if that's where it's
camping.
gonna be,
Yeah.
you need a
Reed-
half dozen spots.
Is Reed on?
Redesign, so I think if people have a lot of questions, if they could just hold them for a second, but I think it's, Reed, do you have anything to say? Or I think there's a question coming your way. You've taken time out of your vacation to be on this call, which I really appreciate, or be on this meeting, so.
The only question I had for Reed is that currently, do you allow people to go down, drop their canoe off, and then come back out of that lower area, correct?
That is correct, yeah.
I can address that for you. I mean, people come in, a lot of times they'll leave a vehicle there, and then they go upstream, and then come down, and they have a vehicle there. so that happens quite a bit. And then you do have people that come there to launch and go downstream, so it's we get traffic going in both directions, shall we say, coming to the park and going away from the park. There hasn't been a problem, with people just parking on the grass down there.
So I was going to ask,
Right now,
is there a need
it's not a
for
problem.
any signage, or it just seems to be working just fine?
Yeah, they launch, there's a little area to the north of where that 15 is labeled, and then there's the kind of the beach area down there. Sometimes they take them down either way. So there's kind of two access points that people use. They're not fancy, they're not,
Right.
But they,
Kind of a muddy bank.
but that's basically what it is. Yeah.
Well, and with Trempealeau, and you guys all know this, it floods. There's water, that lower area is inundated, so whatever's done down there has to withstand flooding.
Yeah,
So,
it does.
Just flopping in a wood structure is probably not the way to go. We probably have to do something that's like riprap, or like something that Andrew showed that is structured and more permanent, and water can just kind of flow over the top of, so.
Laurie Severson has a question, and she also has to leave in 10 minutes, and Reed has to probably leave in 15 minutes or so. So if I would, if there's any, so Laurie, go ahead with your question.
I sure would. A couple things. Do you have actual site nights that you can talk about for the campground?
Yeah, I don't have them right in front of me, the numbers pulled up, but it was extremely low. If you're talking about the utilization of the campground?
Correct.
Yeah, we'll include that in like the narrative portion of the draft plan, that kind of summary analysis of that, but suffice it to say that it's extremely low, very low.
I want to just say that that is highly unusual for right now. Literally, people cannot find places to camp in Wisconsin.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that we need to do as a group is, start our marketing up right away and kind of pull all of our resources together and see what we can do to up that a little bit, because that's really the key part of it. If you don't have, you need that to make all the other things work.
Laurie, I know you don't have a ton more time left here, but it just sounds like I'd love to hear. Just you bring a new perspective on this. I think it's very valuable. I'd love to hear just some of your thoughts, just in general, on this rec pond concept and the idea of the county tiptoeing into this arena. You just said that I believe you're a private operator. You're about to put in a rec pond. There is another. I just saw, searching for places to stay last night, I saw on Airbnb there's like a little RV park not too far from here. They've got a rec pond. So I'm just kind of curious your thoughts on the rec pond at Petrick Park, and just kind of your general thoughts on it, based on your background and experience.
Well, I do own a park myself, and then I work with WACO, the Wisconsin Association of Campground Owners. So there's 210 of us in Wisconsin, and a lot of folks do have those rec ponds. The one thing with those is they have to have revenue around them to support it. So you have to figure out, kind of what comes first, the chicken or the egg kind of thing, and that's a big part of that, I think. So I think it's really important for us to take a look at some of the site night things and the revenue that's currently there, and maybe some of the fun opportunities that we might have to market that and to get a little bit more exposure in that. I also think it's really important to take a look at what is missing in the county. Stony Creek does have a swim pond. You've got a lot of swim ponds kind of in the area. So I think, canoeing is one thing we don't have in the area that we desperately need. The horse thing is one thing we don't have in the area that we desperately need. So I would think maybe a little chat about what is in the county and available to folks, and then what we can use. And I think you've done a great job with that on that survey. So maybe we can pull out some of those kinds of things. That's just my only thought, is timing. I think it's a great idea, but it's timing,
I think Reed wants to talk or has a question. Reed?
Yeah, I'm here. I don't have much of a question. I thank you for that advice, Laurie. That definitely timing is something I guess we have to look more into, and all the ideas that came from the surveys. It'll be great to hear what the committee has to say once they kind of take a closer look at that and hear out what Andrew and Garrett have done so far. One thing I wanted to say to the new committee before I have to get going too is that new ground that was donated. I don't know if you are aware or not. There is kind of a stipulation on time frame on some sort of development in that new 6 acres of donation. Maybe you've been informed or not, but the Shank family right next door generously just recently donated land right at the end of the last year for us to do something like that. So just keep that in mind when we're going to be proceeding and going forward with whatever it may be that they'd like to see something there. Otherwise, it's written up with the county that it will go back to them. So it's a short window. In the scheme of development, we've got about 2 seasons left after this one. Just we want to make sure that we focus on that part of the park. That's all I have to say.
Reed, could you just refresh us on what the time frame is with the Shanks? Is it 2 years?
It was 3 years.
Oh, 3 years. Okay.
So 3 years, and it was finalized right at the end of 2021. So basically, we have this season, which is more or less the planning year. And then we have 2 seasons after that, to kind of get something put in there. And they want to see something more than just a parking lot or additional camping there. I wanted to make the new committee members aware of that situation as well.
I think when Mr. Shank was at one of our meetings, he was very excited about the pond being a part of our park. I don't, so.
For sure, whether that is a rec pond or is a swim pond, or I'm sorry, a fishing pond or some sort of water feature that, Scouts or 4-H can use for canoeing, kayaking, swimming purposes. And then maybe, the request for the skating in the wintertime, maybe that's a better route rather than having a swim pond with flotation devices. But I guess it's ultimately up to the committee with just everything we kind of have to consider going forward. So,
okay,
There's a really cool.
This is Jean.
Go ahead, Jean.
I totally agree with Laurie. It'll be exciting to work with her and Dave Carlson, obviously with his background. It'll be fun for all of us to work on. The other thing is I want to make sure that somehow we can figure out with canoe and kayak that we have some sort of accessibility for people with special needs that are handicapped. And I know that area isn't a lot of room for that. I know the water changes, I know it goes up and down, but if there's somehow that we can work something out, that would be great.
I agree totally. When the state came out to do an inspection last August, they were glad to see that the park currently is pretty much all ADA compliant right now. We don't have any places that wheelchair access can't really get to. Maybe that lower area down below, but the vast majority of the park is. So I'd certainly like to see it kept that way. Obviously, we have to stay within code or regulation. I'm not sure of the terminology, but we can definitely make that a priority. And you were talking, Gene, about river access for the canoe.
Yeah, we're working with the Wisconsin DNR and National Scenic or U.S. Fish and Wildlife. The gentleman out of DNR in Madison comes and helps us in regards to handicap accessibility. We have got grants that we're writing for Long Lake so people can fish there that don't have a boat or have access, to the water anyway, that we could somehow make an area for them. And I don't know how that would be for engineering or whatever, but just so they're assisted and at least it's offered some way that we could do it.
For sure. Yeah, let's definitely keep that in mind. If whatever route the committee decides to proceed, we'll make sure that everything is compliant with wheelchair access.
And Gene, things like that are the type of things that really make people want to camp there and want to stay there. Those unique things will definitely make a difference. And on the pond thing, it's starting it the right way and doing it in pieces. You know, you can make all that kind of stuff happen, but just for a round number, putting inflatables in can cost you as much as $100,000. So it's not just a cheap little thing to start with. You know, but you can build it and you know, start with a little bit at a time and kind of build it up, if you will. So and we do have a lot of great connections with people that know a lot about ponds and those kinds of things, so we can certainly help you out with that.
Great, thank you, Laurie.
Yeah, thanks, Lori. And I really like and one of the things I really like about this plan and work is it's not something we're going to do tomorrow. That we finally have a long-term vision for Petrick Park on where we want to go and how we want to use it and how we want to have the public. There are actually people in this county who've never been to the park, which is astounding to me. So thank you, Reed. If you need to go, feel free to go. If you have anything else you want to say, I think Mike can give an update regarding your issues, but do you have any other final parting words?
Not too much. I did discuss the whole agenda with Mike prior to me leaving, and nothing too complicated on there, and he should be able to answer any questions or anything you might have. And I look forward to meeting the new committee members next month, and looking forward to working with everyone.
Okay, thanks, Reed, so much for joining us this morning.
Chair,
No problem. Thank you much.
I was just going to mention, I think there's a couple of the newer committee members that were trying to get a word in during that discussion. So I think saw both Kevin and Robert raise their hands.
Okay, Kevin, go first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think part of the reason why you don't have a lot of more use at Petrick Park is I live right in Arcadia, which is the same town that is, and because there's not very good marketing. And the reason why I even heard about the park is one of the local studio here did a thing on it. And that's the reason why I even heard about it. So we need to market it better, not only on our local station here, our county-owned station, but throughout the area, all because I think this marketing needs to be a lot better.
That's a good point.
I agree.
That's a good point, and we do have some money budgeted for that. And so I know Dave is working with Reed to do some of that, and that definitely is and part of that includes, I think, to me, one of the big things is a visible sign, entrance sign. Yeah, it's really tough because you've got people driving 80 miles an hour, then you got a railroad right away, and then you've got power lines, and so any sign has to be set back fairly far, so it needs to be a fairly large sign.
We need a large sign. Right now we have a tiny sign, and then you add all the other things, so it's a very tiny old sign.
Right, and signage, and that's why we drew this the way we drew it. It's so flat, and you don't really see it. I mean, Reed's been popping trees out there, but they're only like little 3-foot deals. So something that has more presence and sometimes just a sign is too fast because you get on it because you're doing 80 miles an hour. So having something that gives you a sequence, that's why we did the berming. And the thought is that if the pond does go in, we can take the spills from the pond and use that as the berming elements to create that landscape feature along the roadway.
If you do the berm, you could write in the side of it with rocks, Petrick Park. That's a huge sign. That'll pop. That pops to people. So if you're going to do the berm, I would suggest writing Petrick Park in the side of it, so people, like, when they're driving 80 miles an hour when they shouldn't be, but they'll see that, and it's big. That's a big sign that doesn't cost you a whole lot, and it can be right next to the railroad tracks. They can't touch it. There's nothing. It's not erected. It's on the ground.
I think you guys have something somewhat similar at Phoenix or along those lines, and it works like you could somewhat a little more visible.
Yeah, that was I designed that sign. So yep. Yep, and it is big, it's grandiose. So, I think we need some verticality. I think something that's taller so you can see it from a longer distance, whether it's flags or banners, but something to create that element, so.
Did Bob have a question?
Mine got answered, but I was just gonna say the trouble with the signage is that we're fighting state highway right away, then you got railroad right away, then you got railroad, then you got railroad right away again, and we're so far back where you can put a sign. I mean, that's one of the difficulties about that.
Yeah, and the traditional thought with a county park is that, small, like, ground sign, so we gotta think higher. We just gotta think a little bit taller. So Andrew's back now. So can we just have input, thoughts, direction, likes, dislikes of what the master plan looks like currently?
I love the master plan.
I wanted to ask about the new roads out there surrounding number 9. You're planning on moving those roads from the existing to being closer together, correct?
Correct. The way the road comes in right now, it comes right away when you're.
Yep.
So one of the things that we heard is that there's backups on the highway. And a lot of that is because there's a turning movement right away when you get into the park. So to alleviate that, you get your turning movement farther down. This also creates a more traditional layout of the campgrounds. So having that entrance into the entrance into the second campground being farther to the east or farther into the park will alleviate backups and create a more organized space.
Okay, the only problem that, maybe it's not a problem, but that's the sanitary drain field.
We discussed that, and again, drain fields are movable. They can be. I know it's there now, but when they were installed, this master plan wasn't put in place, so they can be moved.
Well, let's discuss that a little bit more, or let me ask you, Mark, if we put this entrance down a little bit lower, could we avoid the drain field there?
The drain field goes probably from the parking area that exists now. It starts where that sign is, and then it comes out probably about halfway down the road.
It's right here.
There's a row of posts in the ground, and there's some vents there.
So I totally hear you, but to have a park of this nature and have an amenity and have your drain field being one of the main amenities coming to the park, we might want to rethink that.
What about just
You gotta
putting
find a
that-
place to put it, and
True.
that's an extra expense, too.
Understood.
What about just
Understood.
moving the entrance road down here, Garrett?
Well, I'm saying that drain, just in general, having a drain field as your main amenity, it was a convenience where it was placed. It was placed next to the road. The master plan wasn't done at that time. That drain field was done for this building, and there was really not a lot of thought to that big space off to the north.
Well, the other comment I would have, they have a lifetime associated with them anyhow, and at some time it will likely need to be replaced, especially if I got more use. So it's not an indefinite lifetime on these things, so.
Yeah, I would just hate to have you guys make a decision on such a big thought of this park based on a drain field.
Yeah.
That's just my comment. So.
Yeah, but if you're talking about putting more bathrooms in there. So, and you're gonna move that whole drain field, but you're gonna have more use of that drain field. That we should look down the road a little bit if you are gonna move it, but that's a lot of cost just to, you could make where you got parking there on the driveway to the right towards that new donated land. You could encroach on that and put a holding area for campers when they come in. If you didn't wanna have the backup on the road, it'd be cheaper to make that holding area than moving that whole drain field. But if you need to increase the drain field, that's something that should be looked at now before a couple years down the line, all of a sudden that it starts filling up due to the added volume of use. So that should be something that should be studied to find out if
Mark,
you need to do it.
I'm kind of curious, Mark, have you, if that drain field were to get relocated or expanded, I mean, you probably know this area a lot better than anybody else. Do you have any thoughts on where that might go if it was relocated?
You could possibly put it between 10 and 14, back in that area that goes back toward the trail, behind the bathrooms. That would be a possibility. I mean, it's open right now, basically. There's a fire pit there, and what's that?
Yeah, it is. It's high enough for, and it also have to look at the water table, so.
That's what I was thinking, I put that parts
Yeah.
But that's on the higher ground, yeah.
Okay. So Garrett, your thought on coming in here, you don't think that would work?
Again, I don't.
You think it should move?
I think the farther we can get, so when it's Ashley Days and you've got 8, 10, 15 RVs or campgrounds that are campers that are coming in at 6 o'clock at night, you got to get them off the road. You got to get them off the highway so you don't have crashes, so you don't have the backups. You can't do a turn lane on the interstate. The railroad is not going to happen. They're not going to change. So the farther you can get those RVs into the park, the better. So that's why that road into the campground is as far to the east as possible.
Well,
If you do this expansion, is the DOT gonna make you put turn lanes out there if you've got issues?
No, right,
Because with an increased volume, the DOT will step in sometimes to make you put turn lanes.
Right, the volume will not change.
Well, you're putting more campsites, so you're gonna have a lot more people coming in and out of it.
Yeah, the DOT, the state could very well come in at some point and require, to do some upgrades to that access,
And
for
I'm
sure.
just saying, because if you put a swimming pond in there, you're gonna have even more volume of traffic. It's just traffic
Yeah,
flow.
for sure.
This is just questions that we.
Oh, yeah, that would definitely, I could see if you take the next step and really start building this out, the DOT would definitely be involved in that discussion, for sure. We haven't, we
So
know that.
So currently,
that's an
Ashley
issue.
Days is the main issue, or Ashley for the Arts, excuse me, Ashley for the Arts. So that's when most of the backups are happening. During a traditional day, a traditional weekend, that's not happening. That there's more queuing, there's more time to come in. So that's why the DNR hasn't really, or the DOT hasn't really looked at this, because it's a one-day event, and they won't make you do turn lanes for a 1 or a week event. If it were something that were happening, and hopefully that's the case, hopefully this gets to the point to where you're forcing the DOT to do a turn lane, but at this point in time, there isn't a necessity to add a turn lane.
Hopefully someday it will be.
Yeah, totally yes.
Any other feedback on what you're seeing here? I think probably the next phase here is to put together the draft plan with more of the data in here and the narrative to and then share that with the committee, so you guys will have a chance to kind of read through this, and we'll pull in some of the data from the existing campground utilization and kind of put a narrative, to go along with this. We can certainly clean this up. Any more feedback on kind of the layout and the look here? Yeah.
I'm just wondering about the bridge, if that is actually at the point where the current observation deck is now?
I think that's roughly where you have that, yeah.
Because that's a real high point.
It doesn't have to be there.
Actually,
I put it there because there's a current structure there for oversight. Actually, one of the better areas is if you go to the south of 17, where the last swing is. That's the narrowest part of the river, but it's the farthest away from the parking. So that's why we located it, because it was an already existing condition that there would be less disturbance.
The observation deck is kind of like at the highest point.
You're right, exactly.
Yeah.
You guys
So-
nailed it with the high spot there, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, I think, right now, the bridge is a placeholder. It's gonna move. When you get to the final construction documents, there's gonna be like the sweet spot to put it, so.
I would just like, one of the main points of this plan too is right now, currently, we can't access that 30 acres on the east side of the river. So the one point that we haven't had a whole lot of discussion on is, in our discussions to this point, we had two ways to address that. One, a bridge across the river, and two, an easement from River Road, purchasing the easement from the landowners east of the park and trying to do that. And at least either one of those options that achieves that, and I think the public input, people preferred the bridge, I think.
I think so,
From what
yeah.
you guys were hearing. But, those are all challenges to, one of our big challenges is how do we get to the east side of the river, the east side of the property.
I think you're right. The bridge would be the primary. We could always do both, but I think the bridge would be primary. Maybe we could do a combination of both, but I'm sure the bridge is the primary, like they said. The easement and the bridge. But I know it's more money, but I would concentrate on the bridge right now, like they said, like the survey says.
Is there a snowmobile route close to that? Do you know? Nothing there, Robbie? I was just wondering if you'd build it for a snowmobile for the machines to cross, but if there's no need for something that big, no sense wasting the money.
Comment I guess I had builds on what everybody's been saying here. Could we, in the concept plan, include a corridor for either trail or road access on that easement? We had talked earlier about provides another enhancement for usage of the park for bikers, if we can access directly the bike trail system for the county from the park without having to go out on 93 to get out there. And that road there on the east side is designated part of the county bike trail system. Even if it was just a trail access corridor, that gets rid of bringing a lot of car traffic into the east side of the park, hopefully, and allows for the bikers, if those folks that may want to come and spend a weekend camping.
Right, and the easement, I mean, everybody, when you think of an easement, you think you're going to be able to drive your car along the easement and come actually onto the park. I've been at county parks. There was one in Jefferson County where it's a long road. You park up at the trailhead, and then you walk in, because there's an easement, you walk into the park. So there was comments about policing and not being able to take care of it. They thought that it was the new party spot for the kids, was the thought. So if you don't allow cars to come all the way into the park and you leave it as a trailhead out in the, and then it's also a bike access point.
Access.
That could be a reasonable compromise to get people to this side of the park, but it's pedestrian and it's bike.
I think the bridge is still priority one. I think everybody's mindset is there, but it would be nice just to have that
I mean, we
other
could
outlet.
keynote this up there along that borderline and just call it, potential, east side or access.
You don't want to tell somebody you're going to buy an easement from them before you start chatting with them, right?
Right.
But it's,
Right, and when you look at the aerial map, that property line goes straight out to River Road. It's currently not under ag. It's mostly wetland or grassland. There's no ag that's actually being used along that area. So you're right, Buzz. I think having a conversation with them just to see a 15-foot easement would be, quite nice.
limestone surface or something like that.
Even grass, even just, if it's just peds or people are walking through, just creating the access point through, so.
I'm curious if folks, we didn't, I don't know how much more you guys have on your agenda, because we're already a few
We have
hours.
quite a bit.
Okay, well, maybe we ought to, you guys probably don't want to be in this meeting all day. Do we want to try to start winding this conversation down?
I think that would be a good idea because there is quite a lot left on the agenda. So if people have other questions or issues they want to bring forward, is it my understanding that you're going to put all of that together and come to the June meeting or July meeting with?
I think we had in our kind of contract to do 3 site visits, and this is our third site visit. So we would probably be doing, we could certainly, potentially do some additional, remote meetings. But I think as a kind of a next step, working with staff here, we'll get that draft of this plan out to you
Okay.
guys so you can look at it.
Okay.
I'm thinking, just based on, you've got some new people here in the room, and, we may still leave this a little bit loose, this this plan, in case there are any more additional kind of changes. I guess we'll kind of talk through that with Mike, how we want to approach that. But what we don't want to do is, before Garrett finalizes this and makes it look really, really nice, we just want to make sure it's the right plan and we don't have to go back and redo a bunch of stuff. So maybe as you guys are having future conversations, again, maybe the 4-H building, the dog park, we don't want to get into that right now, but I think those are a couple other ones that might deserve some additional discussion. So.
Yeah, I had a long discussion with Kellen Nelson, who's on the fair board, but he said and maybe we can put this on the agenda for next month, because he said there's money in 4-H to look at possibly, what he was really concerned about is a building that 4-H kids could use to stay overnight, and do some weekend things or weekday things. That is really the area that 4-H is looking at, and how to use the park. Because I think there was a time when that old lower building, and Bob Petrick can maybe respond to this, it was divided in half, and there were spaces for kids to stay overnight, girls on one side, boys on the other, which is something that's lost in the park, to have overnight or use the park for kids to come to school, like happens in Beaver Creek or park in Eau Claire. Lots of overnight stuff happens with kids in the elementary schools up there.
I think, guys, your long-term goals are kind of right on. My general discussion with different people that been to your meetings and stuff, they don't know you, they're not going to open up, but when they know somebody, they'll speak. But on your short-term goals, one of the 4 things that I picked up the most out of the general public were horse arena, that small lake, the mini cabins, and a canoe landing. On the short-term goals. Long-term, that's indefinite. If it's done in another 50 years, it gets done, but you ain't gonna build it overnight. But I mean, you gotta have some projective as short-term.
You said the horse, the mini cabins, the launch, what was the 4th one?
Canoe landing, cabins, lake, and horse arena.
That's a good point with the pond, and I think Laurie mentioned as well, but you could tiptoe into that, sorry. That's a good comment with the pond, because I think as Laurie mentioned, you can tiptoe into that. You don't have to go out and build the full rec pond. You do a little pond, see how it works, and move in from there. So thank you, Bob.
I would agree with Bob. I think the pond is really, in my head, a thing that we need to focus on right away. Because the reason we moved into this direction is because we needed to have something in the park that was going to draw people to come and hang out and play. And the water feature was number 1 in a lot of people's requests.
I also was thinking with the pond, it could be tied into 4-H, Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts pretty easily for water safety, teaching how to canoe,
Right.
teaching how to kayak, because canoeing and especially kayaking seems to be something that I'm seeing with the younger generations.
Right, I agree.
And it's a safe space. They're not thrown right into the river right away, so it's something that they can learn the skills without a lot of danger, so.
I think if you really want to increase the number of campers, the pond is the first priority, and the next one, I think, is the playground equipment. I think that, a lot of the canoers, kayakers, and the horse arena usage, most of those aren't campers. I'm thinking of the camping revenue that you got. I would think that the pond and the playgrounds, the 4 and 5 that are on the map, would be the things that are going to draw campers in. And
Right.
people are gonna come in and use the dog walking area, but that's not necessarily campers. So from that perspective, I just think that's
Yeah.
important.
Right, I have a question on the campers, I'm just kind of curious, you mentioned the playground enhancements could help attract additional campers. Are people that are coming with kids, or these more older people and folks without kids that are coming right now?
I would say the majority have kids.
Okay.
I would say the majority do have kids of all ages, really.
Okay. And I'm
I
also.
mean, there are plenty of people that, are an elderly couple or
Sure.
something like that.
Sure,
But there's a lot of families.
Okay. I'm curious, your thoughts on the natural playground, the adventure playground concepts. Do you think that's
I think they're
a good
both good
direction?
ideas.
Yeah. Okay.
I think a lot of the people, you're trying to get away,
Yeah.
and you don't want to have to be finding things for your kids to do to
Right.
keep them busy.
Right.
If there's something there to keep
Yeah.
them busy, you
Yeah.
can sit down and relax.
Enjoy yourself. Yeah.
And it's going to be a nice place for you.
Yeah.
This is during one family I spoke with last year who I thought they said they were camping there for 2 weeks, said that, and they had children around 6 years of age, that they felt safe that their kids could ride their bikes to the playground and them walking behind, and there was enough for them to do walking through the trail system and riding their bikes through there too. And they were little top bikes.
I got a question for you. What you guys, for that lake or the pond or whatever, we don't have to supply any fence it all off, do you? Or is it just wide open?
Yeah, that's a great question. I know I've seen both. I know for Allegheny County.
Your microphone.
Good. I've seen both. I know in Allegheny County, that county-run facility, that is fenced off, but I've been to some private facilities where it's not. So I will have to dig into that a little bit, and maybe Laurie that can chime in on that.
Do we have to? We don't have to supply a lifeguard for that, do we?
Well, I think there probably is a number of management staffing considerations there. I suspect you do have to have, you do have to have oversight if you're getting into the inflatables and that sort of thing.
If you're creating a swimming atmosphere, I think it would be wise to have.
I know, but
right.
we have to know to see what kind of budget we need to.
Understood.
And what the costs are, and what's the maintenance of a pond like that, yearly cost for maintenance alone.
Right.
Yeah,
On top of that.
And we'll dig. We have had 2 conversations with the companies that design and build and maintain these things. And we've got notes on those. So we will include in the draft plan some cost estimates on what that looks like. The staffing piece, I think, is something that it would be. We can dig into a little bit, but I also think Laurie would have some good guidance for us on that as well. So, yeah, but I definitely think the long range vision and getting into the rec pond piece has significant staffing implications for the county for sure.
One more question, then I'll shut up. Crash, I got one question for you. Do you think that those playgrounds are too far away from all those campsites? Or you got a number 11 just as a big green space? Or would that be too close to the campers, do you think? Like Doreen, you were saying they pedal their bikes over there, is that
It's nice
too?
for the campground, it's kind of where it is next to the shelter right now.
Yeah.
Because when there's parties going on, the adults kind of stay in the shelter and the kids
Right.
kind of go out to the playground a lot. So I don't think you would want to move them too far away from the shelter.
5's a long ways away. I mean,
Well,
from the
so
campground.
just
I'm just
the-
asking.
Yeah. So the
It's not that terrible.
right. So the thought process with this is currently the existing park around the restrooms. That's a fairly sustainable. It's very well done. It needs some updating. So the thought that those playgrounds are unique and specific. They're not for the playgrounds. They're for the park. So when there is a family reunion, when there is a community outing, when there is something going on in those buildings, there's additional play elements for that's already been programmed there. We're just expanding the thought. So if there's surveys as the camp, let's say camping does grow, let's say that there are, you're getting 80% occupancy during the year, there may be a desire to add a playground for the camping element itself. That's down the road. But for right now, we don't have a crystal ball. We can't really see that. So the idea of that, the playground is for the park itself and those facilities.
One other comment, just because you mentioned number 11, I think. Just want to make sure we believe that number 11 also provides, sufficient space for the overflow parking to accommodate that Ashley for the Arts. And then just, again, on number 1, and Garrett and I already talked about this, but that might shrink. That's probably going to shrink a little bit just on the final master plan, because we're going to be probably closer to that 1.5 acre size, somewhere in there. And so that'll shrink a little bit, providing additional overflow parking as well. So we think we're good with the overflow parking accommodation.
Right now, where 4 is, we have a small playground area. It's not real big. It's pretty small. And where number 5 is on your map, it's really an area that's just a big open area, and it really doesn't get used. It really, the only thing that goes through there's a disc golf hole. But otherwise, it's a pretty just wide open area that is not used for anything else. And it certainly would be fine for putting a playground there. And I don't think it's a worry about how far it is from the campground so much. I think the kids will go there anyway. They'll walk. They'll ride their bikes. They'll go to it.
So I can see families bringing their dogs to the dog park and have their eyes on their kids playing in the playground.
And
I think an easy thing that we can do for kids in the campground, which they're very interested in and is big right now, is the Gaga ball. It doesn't seem to me to be extremely pricey to put that into play. So, that's just one of the things I think that kids would really love. Well, they do love it.
And we do have the next agenda item, the 4-H building.
Right.
So, we're good.
All right. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Great
for
feedback.
your
Appreciate all the discussion. It makes it a lot more fun.
First of all, you guys this really captured it.
We're not done yet. It's going to get
I know,
better
but
yet,
it's pretty awesome.
So far, so good.
It is
I'll let you
awesome.
guys kind of noodle on this a little bit before Garrett kind of dials that up. Make sure we've got that vision kind of crystallized. So.
And late this morning, I will send out the full presentation that you were supposed to see. So check your emails. It's a large file, so it'll be a Dropbox link you can download, but you will get that via email today.
Make sure you're sitting down with a cold beer when you get to the cost estimate slide.
That's okay. I'll get a six-pack.
I might want to go a couple more than that.
Yeah.
Thanks for the insight, guys.
Thank you, guys. Good job.
Nothing's cheap these days, guys.
Okay. Thanks, everybody. Really great feedback. As the 4-H building, I think, Mike, do you have something to add?
I have nothing to add. All I was told is that someone was going to come here and talk about the 4-H
I know.
building,
And-
so I don't know what's going on for that.
Okay, so we need to put that on, and I'll have Reed put it on next month to make sure maybe the 4-H person and Helen could come together to talk about. Yes?
I guess Andrea may know some on this, but
Okay.
It is my wheelhouse.
Okay,
Anything
great.
4-H. So, in case you guys don't know who I am Andrea Ripley Schleiss. I'm the 4-H program educator for Trempealeau and Jackson County. Wearing my UW-Madison emblem just to represent, right? So, I've actually been having conversations with Mike along with Kellen about this. As you guys kind of talked about a little bit, 4-H has had some history with the park, and with the camping aspect, and it's kind of died away from that in the recent years, but camping changes, right? There's a lot of different like regulations and facilities that we need to use, and recently the facility that we were using with Trempealeau, Jackson, Pepin, Pierce, and Buffalo County, those are all the counties that I camp together with, because that means I have other educators and they can help me do some work. Camping is a lot of work if you guys don't know that. And the university has changed how we do things and how we do camping, so I prefer to team up with other people. But recently we kind of lost our ability to use the previous camping place that we were using. Not a bad thing. They were going to charge us $5,000 as a non-refundable deposit in order to utilize the facility, and if anything happened that we were not able to go and attend, we would have lost that money. And it was costing like upwards of $120 per camper to attend, and I prefer having programs for youth in our county to be reasonable in price, because then I think of it, my parents had 3 daughters. We went everywhere together, and all I can think of is, okay, if I sent 3 kids at $120 a kid, like that is a lot of money, and I don't know how my parents afforded that. We were farmers. So Mike had recently approached me and said, hey, is there a possibility that 4-H would like to camp at the park again? And I said, of course, there is. There's a couple hoops that we would have to jump through, but we can make that happen. And I would love to see something like that happen. I want to bring kids back to Trempealeau County to be camping. I had a 6th grade camp out in Petrix Park when I was in 6th grade, naturally. I said that. But then also, I love Petrix Park. I actually use it quite a bit, and so I'm really excited about some of these changes that are coming up, mainly the dog park. I have 2 dogs. But eventually, like rec ponds and everything, those are super cool. Not to talk about the previous topic, you guys have talked about it quite a bit already. But, so, I guess the main part about the 4-H building that he's been asking about is he said, okay, so what are the things that you guys would like to see in order to be able to utilize the space? In order for us to use any camping facility, we would have to be DATCAP certified. So some of the facilities in the area that are DATCAP certified are Fall Creek, or Beaver Creek up in Fall Creek, Decorah, which is over the Boy Scout camp over by Holman. I'm sure you guys have seen the signs. There's also Camp E. Howie, which is over in Melrose. So there's a lot of different like private camping facilities that we would technically be able to use. I don't know what it takes to be DATCAP certified. I will say that right now. Not a camping expert. I am a jack of all trades, master of none. Camping is one of them. But there would also have to be a kitchen facility. So those are like the 2 big things. So I see this tying in with the camp planning or the park planning that's happening with being able to utilize some of these facilities, because this would not just be a 4-H only type of facility. I would hope that it would be able to be used more during the rest of the year, but have the benefit that 4-H would also get to use it for a camp once a year. So it's not just us. And I know Kellen said 4-H has money. I don't want to say we don't have money, but we are a good partnership. Like naturally, like any nonprofit, we have a lot of funds that we have available to us, but also we have a lot of things we spend them on. So I can't say, yes, we have $1 million in our back pocket and we are able to build this facility all on our own. No, we do not. But the nice thing is I'm hoping to be able to create some sort of steering committee on our 4-H side and hopefully partner with land management to at least be able to start looking at and talking about some of these things. I'm curious what you guys think of that. But I know for sure with 4-H, it seems easy when you come and say, hey, let's do this. It's not. A lot of times they have to have some buy-in. They have to be able to say, hey, I do want this, or this is something that our kids would be able to benefit from in the county. So I guess I'm kind of here to kind of talk to you guys about that. If you guys have any comments or concerns or ideas, I love to hear them. Yes.
Your perspective that there'd be a dormitory facility associated with it, with the bathrooms and.
Yes.
And then how big does that, how many kids are we talking about per event? So just so we start to get a feel for, is this a $5 million building, a $2 million building? What are we thinking here?
So I don't know prices. Like I said, that is not my wheelhouse. I would say typically we have about 150 to 200 kids who camp.
At one time?
Yes. Yes. But if you think about it this way, 3rd through 6th grade, we're doing essentially the dormitory cabin style camping. 7th through 8th, we can do camping or outpost adventure camp, however you want to call it. So that's where they go in tents and they go elsewhere and they kind of do the off the grid style camping, which is the the type I prefer to do. I like the older kids a little bit more. So that at least frees up some of the space. So like if we have a dormitory set up for at least 150 campers, that's just 3rd through 6th graders, plus counselors who would be associated with them, and possibly adults like myself who have to be there to make sure that everything is going smoothly. So that would take care of that. Any other questions?
April, this is Jean.
You are.
Would it be possible that you come up or that you have some sort of information that you could get to land management and they could email us, such as the information you're just providing, like the ages and the things, that would be needed to do, like a brief summary that we could look at or something like that?
So what are you looking for in that, though? Are you saying like the ages of campers, how many?
No, just the information, what you would need, the things that you provide, things like that. So other people that aren't used to things like this could read it. We could also put it in our files.
Yeah, I can create something and send that out.
That'd be great. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
You are right on line with, a 4-H park, because this is how this park started.
Exactly.
Joe was a 4-H leader, and it had something to do when the park was first started, Joe Petrick Memorial 4-H Park.
Mm-hmm.
And as far as that goes, the park is never supposed to have been commercialized. It's for the youth of the county. Say, for instance, and I'm just using this example, if you had a 4-H function going on Ashley for the Arts Day, guess what comes first? It isn't Ashley for the Arts.
Mm-hmm.
It's the 4-H kids.
Yeah. I honestly love using it. All my day camps that I do and during the summer I hold at Petrick's Park because it's a good location. It's got good facilities. I don't have to worry about people being able to get in and out. ADA compliance is a huge part of my job, and if I know people have other abilities, I want to make sure that they're able to access. And I actually, I do understand because when Joe passed, it was Emily, right?
Emily and Joe, yes.
Yep, she donated money to Trempealeau County 4-H, but also Clark County, where he was an educator at. And so we do have a foundation that started because of them. And so I want to bring back the connection to the county because I don't like that we would have to drive hours to go to a camp. Granted, there are other, I don't want to say issues, but there are other things that come awry with having kids close to home while they camp, but those are stuff that I have to worry about, and that's not your guys' concern.
And I know, like other functions with kids involved, the park was shut down through the years where, other people couldn't come in and use the park because usually with the kids it was like a 2 or 3 day thing. And, the park was just off limits, as a safety issue to, protect the kids that they could run wild and have a good time, and some of them kids, that's probably the only running around they do. And
Right.
to get a chance to go camping.
Exactly. No, I like that thought, actually. Thank you for that.
And one of the things that I really love about bringing kids back to the park is that kids grow up and they become adults and they remember their experiences at the park and they use the park. The more kids we can introduce to the park, I think the better. Because it is like our little jewel that a lot of people don't know about. So I'm very excited about renewing our partnership with 4-H.
Are you thinking 4-season programming then, and how many days a year do you think it would get used if, let's say we get what we want?
Okay, so perfect world.
Perfect world, yeah.
No funding necessary.
That's no money limitation.
No money. Ooh, I really like this. So I would love to be able to do 4 seasons type of programming. We currently, a couple educators and I were going to do a winter camp. So that we were going to use as like a leadership style, like older youth would come, they would get the opportunity to be campers, because a lot of times once they get older, they end up becoming counselors, and not that that's not fun, but they enjoy being a camper still. So we were going to have a camp for them along with some leadership opportunities to give them more experience so that later on when they go out in the world, they can say, okay, I have had interview experience. I do know how to lead a meeting. I am capable of conducting Parley Pro successfully, stuff like that. We were looking at doing that up at Beaver Creek, but if this was the opportunity to also be able to do winter programming here at this facility, I would take that. If I wouldn't have to travel outside of the county to do as much for my programming, I wouldn't. But we don't always have that type of facility here. And if that was a possibility, I would take advantage of it. So yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, I guess. Second part would be, so we build it, right?
Mhm.
Will they come from the other counties then too, if we had this? So it
Yeah.
isn't a one-trick pony for the summer, right?
No, I don't foresee it being that way. I don't want to say camp contracts aren't. A lot of times we go to certain camps because they are able to offer us certain things. So the camp facility that we were previously using was Marine on St. Croix, which is up in Minnesota, right between Stillwater and Hudson, kind of. I don't know if you're familiar with the area. So like, that's like a 2-hour bus drive. And if you guys understand anything about busing, that's a couple $1,000s to get kids over to camp and then back. Well, and then this was the camp facility that was also kind of expensive. I mean, they had a pool, they had archery, they had a lot of really great amenities, so we were okay going there, but after a while things start to cost us extra. I can foresee if people are willing to drive 2.5 hours, if not more, to go to a facility like that, they would also be willing to come to our facility as well. I don't know every county's camping like arrangement. I know there's some pretty good camp partnerships with other counties that they are like, nope, I will never leave my camp. This is mine. There are others that are like, if there's something better that comes up, I'm willing to move. I would hope that there would be some that would do that.
The next logical ones, if you get those partnerships established, will they make an investment in the facility from their county, so this isn't all on Trempealeau County's back?
Possibly. I can't speak for other counties. I can only speak for Trempealeau, but yeah.
Question at some point.
Is this something we could tag team with, say like with the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts too?
I don't have connections with them, but I can foresee
But I mean, just
yeah.
as a, long-term venture, because instead of just using, say, a month out of the year, you've got different aspects that you could, like you said, try and use it all 4 seasons.
Right. Yeah. And I'm sure they would be willing to. I'm not familiar with their programming. I was only a 4-H'er growing up. I can only speak on the green clover, but yeah, I think that they would be willing to as well. Yes.
I know like youth organizations or like human services type organizations that might partner with you. Like the company I work for, if you guys got this going, I could be the liaison. There's other companies similar to mine that have youth that, like you said, that might be the only time to get out. So I know there's other companies, other organizations, human services, boys and girls, all of those that would be more willing to use that. That would not be an issue.
And you're correct. When I was a social worker in Eau Claire County, we used Beaver Creek for our CPS week. We brought families that were involved with our child protection unit, and it was a time when their kids were in foster care, and the parents would come for the 3 days, and we did a lot of role modeling. It was really tough work, but the county used the park quite a bit for that very thing. I think, I'm not sure, Mike, where you want to go with this. I mean, it was just on here as a discussion. I think we need to continue this idea with the people who are doing our planning for Petrick Park, that we remember 4-H kids and how we can have some sort of facility there to accommodate overnight stays with kids.
Yeah, we can just bridge that information with Garrett and Andrew.
Okay, great. I think
This is
I was just going
Okay.
to thank Andrea for being there. I'm sorry I didn't know you were there.
It's okay,
And
Jeannie. I was sitting in the back.
Okay, I'm sorry, but I'm so happy you're there, and I don't know where Kellen was because I wanted him to come too. But anyway, thank you so much, and and bringing us back full circle about what this park was meant for and its kids, really.
This is Doreen, and I just want to say, Andrea, thank you for bringing up everything that you had spoken about. I, as well as my family, my daughters, and extended family, have been involved in 4-H and the camping and going to all those other facilities for winter camping and that. And yes, it has built strong leadership skills. I think my children, as well as family members, would not have some of the positions that they have had we not had that early exposure to leadership and counseling and et cetera, et cetera. So, thank you.
And I would piggyback on that our daughter was involved in 4-H and horses, and now she's a professor at the University of Washington, and I think those skills really stuck with her. So, okay, thanks again, Andrea, and we will keep this discussion going with how we can incorporate something for 4-H kids within our new plan. So we still have quite a bit on the agenda. I'm ready to move on to number 11, AED update and discussion.
Reed let me know the Sheriff's Department had some extra AEDs, so there will be an AED being installed at the park.
Awesome.
So we won't have to purchase a new one. We'll just take that one that the Sheriff's Office offered us, and we're good to go.
Okay,
as,
great.
As a former firefighter and EMS background, I really appreciate having an AED there. Yeah, that makes me feel a lot better.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with that.
Okay, number 12, research on the history of Friends of Petrick Park, discussion and possible action.
We did a search at the Department of Financial Institutions, and there wasn't previously a 501c3 set up for that. For newer committee members in the past, there was a pamphlet that said Friends of Petrick Park, and really it was more of marketing to allow people to make a donation, and then donation, and those funds would go into the Park Fund and Trempealeau County Park Fund. The idea behind a typical Friends group is a separate 501c3 with a different board that provides advocacy and fundraising, separate from the county for the park. And so, there's been some discussions with people who feel more comfortable giving to a 501c3 with the tax benefit there. So if you guys would like us to pursue creating a Friends of Petrick Park 501c3, we can do that, but we would need action and a motion and approval for us to go forward with that.
Me personally, like you said, I think if you did you guys have it, but it's not, quote, official. If you guys, in my opinion, if you guys did have an official 501c, that would definitely help people, like I said, be more willing to donate to that than like the state or the county in general. I agree, and make that thing more formal.
I think it's a good idea as well, Mike. I know I've had experience with developing a 501c for a board that I'm on, and it took a long time. But it was good.
The hard part is going through the IRS process. That's the hardest part.
Right. And there are so many restrictions on what you can say and do, but it's really a good thing.
For helping in a park out in long range, that 501c3 is really going to benefit it with amount of cost sharing and people donations and stuff. So I'm going to make a motion that we move forward in being a 501c3 Friends of Petrick Park.
I'll
Thank you,
second
Bob.
that.
Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great, thank you. Lower shelter update.
All right, lower shelter. Reed's been in contact with somebody, and the meeting just hasn't happened, but he is in discussions with somebody to look at upgrading that lower shelter. adding some interior siding and getting that updated. I think it needs a little bit of electrical in there too, and insulation. If any board member wants to see that, we can get you a little tour, in-person tour with Mark or Reed or whatever, so to get you familiar with those buildings down there. But there's a building in the lower area closer to the river that's been used for groups, and we have some existing siding, I think, the tongue and groove siding, and so without too much cost, we can kind of make that a more usable building. So Reed will be getting more information back to this committee on that.
Okay, great. I believe it's time for Dave Carlson, Economic Development and Tourism Coordinator, activity update.
I was thinking you might all want to take a break for lunch before my 2-hour presentation here. I'm just kidding. No, it was a good discussion on the Petrick Park Master Plan, and I did take some notes here, both on the plan and about the interest in marketing or getting the word out more on the park to increase campers. So this is a learning experience for me, being relatively newer to the county. I assumed people knew about it and were utilizing it at 100% capacity, but as I've learned here in the first several weeks, that's not the case. Anyways, to the new committee members, welcome. I really look forward to working with you all. A little bit about my background. I came to Trempealeau County most recently from the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, where I was managing an economic assistance grant program. I've been in economic development for about 8 years now and have a certification through the International Economic Development Council. I grew up in Wausau, lived in Eau Claire for 13 years. I was a reporter up there, TV, radio, newspaper. Worked 20 years in government public relations before entering the economic development field. So my ties to Trempealeau County, my wife grew up here. Her family settled up in Upper French Creek in the 1860s, 1870s, Solberg family. Her brother Theron has a trailer business in Frenchville. Her mom, Carol, was a fourth grade teacher in Blair for many years. Her dad, Ron, who passed away a few years ago, taught hundreds, if not into the thousands of kids how to drive at GET. So Cinda and I have been together, that's my wife, about 9 years now. So I've spent a lot of time in Trempealeau County, but it was mainly, visiting family. About a year ago, we bought a house in Galesville. The idea is for both of us to be up here. Next year, I'm up here like 95% time now. She's got a job that she's working on getting retired from next year. So then this is where we will be. I kind of feel like after the first 6 weeks on the job that I have the best job in Trempealeau County. Shh, don't tell anybody. And I have a good group of people that I work with in the department and, the committee members, the holdovers and the new ones. I just want to give a real brief report on some of the stuff that I've been working on. I'll try to keep sort of a report type thing on the agenda every month, although I might try and get to a written report so that you can just have sort of a summary of what kinds of things I've been doing, and then maybe reserve discussion time for like things that I might need some direction or support on. So real quickly, some of the things I've been doing, I did attend the Wisconsin Rural Partners Rural Summit last week in Marshfield. That was a day-long conference, really good, talking about economic development tools and resources for smaller communities. I have met with all of our tourism and economic development partners that I could readily identify, including the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation, that's WEDC if I start throwing acronyms around. Seven Rivers Alliance, which is a regional economic development organization. I met last week in Osseo with Julianne Fox, who's our regional tourism liaison with the Wisconsin Department of Tourism. Met with the Mississippi River Regional Planning Commission, MRRPC. It's better to just say the name. Also had a chance when I was at that conference in Marshfield last week to talk with Erin Welty. She's with WEDC and she runs the Main Street program, Connect Communities program. So you might have heard of Main Street. Generally, it requires, it's a state program, but it works with local communities to help improve their downtown, central business district type areas. Main Street, it's a well-known national program. Typically, for a community to be involved in that, you need to have a full-time director working on it. So WEDC rolled out a few years ago a program called Connect Communities, which I kind of like to refer to as Main Street Light. Currently, Arcadia and Whitehall are both Connect Communities cities or communities. I think that there's probably some interest in Galesville, just given some things that have been happening there recently, and potentially getting involved with that program. So that was a good connection to make there. I have been out doing business visits. I've sort of been focusing initially on just getting out and walking some of the main streets around the county and handing out business cards just to make those contacts. I am working on, and this is a little tougher, to find schedules that line up to get in with the right people, but I have been looking at setting up meetings with our, larger, manufacturing businesses. As you can imagine, Ashley's not the easiest one to get into, but I've been making some progress in those regards. I have been trying to focus on getting out and talking with the banks in our respective communities, because my experience tells me that lenders typically have a pretty good pulse on what's going on economically in the community and maybe what some of the needs are, for gap financing, that sort of thing. Have been working on getting out and meeting with chambers. I did start, actually just put it live yesterday, a new Trempealeau County Economic Development Facebook page. So you're probably familiar, you're probably familiar with the tourism Facebook page we've had out for a while. We also have an Instagram page for tourism. I really think it's important that we elevate the visibility of economic development in the community. So my vision for that Trempealeau County Economic Development Facebook page is going to be a place where on a regular basis that we can share information about business success stories, as well as resources that are available for businesses large and small, and very importantly, for aspiring entrepreneurs, people who are looking at starting a small business, how can we raise some of those ideas up to fruition? So if you haven't already, go out on Facebook, just type in Trempealeau County Economic Development. I think the page should be out there now. I was trying to look it up yesterday and I was having some problems, but I think it was just because it hadn't caught up with the system yet, but it's out there now. Also am working on managing, or I am managing the river travel media contract to do destination marketing. The county was fortunate enough to receive a $19,000 federal grant through the Arka Funds to encourage people to come to Trempealeau County to visit. That's a pretty significant campaign. We've never done anything that large. I have no idea what to expect out of it. So we're all going to be watching, learning, evaluating together on that, and see what kind of a difference it makes in terms of visitors to the area. We're going to try and track that through like increases in room nights at lodging properties, increase in traffic at various tourism-related businesses, that kind of thing. Excuse me. Trying to get through the list here. I have renewed our sponsorship of a program called Getting Outdoors on WHTL Radio. So first Thursday of every month, you will hear my voice from 8 to 8:30, maybe 8:40 if the conversation's going well. As part of that, and it's really reasonable. I want to say it's like $40 a month. So in addition to getting our our 30 minutes of conversation about Trempealeau County Tourism and Economic Development, we also get a number of public service announcement type spots, throughout the course of the airwaves. Is it a couple times a day? You probably have it on in your business. I don't listen. I'm working. Yeah. There you go. Yep. So, I think that's a really good vehicle, and I've been having. I'm a radio guy in past life. I like coming on and just talking about some stuff.
You're like going back to your old days.
Yeah, kind of. That doesn't quite pay quite as well, but I had a lot of fond memories. Anyways, I did have a chance to meet with the Trempealeau County Towns Association unit meeting last week in Independence. So that was an opportunity just to introduce myself to a number of town boards that were there. I am going to be working on getting, at least offering to come to town board meetings, village board meetings, city council meetings, just to introduce myself and let them know what resources I have and what things I can assist them with. And it could be something as simple as just, hey, you know what, we need some help in, attracting business, to we might do something as complex as we're thinking about, creating a tax increment finance district. Can you help with that? And the answer is yes, I can. Petrick Park 50th anniversary ideas. Reed Lally and I met actually with the rest of our land management staff a couple weeks ago, threw around some ideas. Nothing real specific yet, although there was, I think, consensus that we wanted to organize activities, and there is a date, it's in September, I don't remember. 24. Thank you. That we want to organize the activities that day around something that focuses on youth and maybe showcases, some youth conservation, environmental activities, efforts, projects that they've been working on, that sort of thing. But there were a bunch of ideas thrown around, from doing cookout to, a bunch of things. I think by next month, we'd probably be able to bring some ideas forward, just get some feedback from you on those. Let me see, had a few other notes here. I am going to be working on trying to form a broadband committee. This is something that my predecessor had started working on, and then it did not move forward past a certain point, and then he left. Broadband, or high-speed internet access, is really a core economic development need. It's just like we need roads to transport things. We need broadband, high-speed internet access throughout our county to keep the economy in Trempealeau County humming and growing. So I will be working on that. One other quick note: you might have heard about the availability of Main Street bounce back grants through the Wisconsin Economic Development Corporation. This was some ARPA money that came to the state that they directed part of that go to help fill vacant storefronts on main streets in our communities. We actually have had so far, and the application window is still open, we've had 18 grant applications been approved, totaling $180,000. And just quickly, the breakdown on that: there were 2 in Arcadia, 5 in Osseo, 6 in Galesville, 1 in Strum, 3 in Blair, and 1 in Whitehall. Nothing in Independence. But I'm still working on trying to get the word out on that, and I think I'll probably be posting that tomorrow to that Facebook page that we created, and just trying to use some other opportunities to get the information out about that. What it is it's a $10,000 grant that's payable up front when somebody signs a lease to occupy a space or to rent a space, to start a new business, or to maybe move a business out of their home and into a commercial space. So it's, always say it's free money. If you're thinking about doing it in, anyway, and you can get $10,000 to help, great. If you were sort of on the edge, but, this could help, we do want to see, vacant storefronts occupied, so.
I do know in a lot of downtowns, even in the smaller towns, there's a lot of vacant storefronts, and that's not exactly a good thing.
Yeah. That's all I've got. Are there any questions from people? Yeah.
I know this is more of I know they do it in the States, but I know this is down the road. On like the major highways, we should have next to like the green Trempealeau, we should have a welcome to Trempealeau County thing, kind of like they do in the state, but at just the major highways.
Yeah, it's good.
I know that might be some money, but I think that since we have some money, that's be a good thing, because you see some like the bigger counties maybe do it, but we should do something like that, and they could get a sign or something. Like in Minnesota, because I work in Minnesota, when you're entering, it says "Welcome to Minnesota." It's like a little sign or a blue one with the local. And I know with the DOT might have to be next to the green, like Trump basic, but above it or below it, something like that. Like some cities do. They'd think that's an idea, something along those lines.
Good idea.
Dave, if those ARPA funds, are they available not only for somebody who's gonna put a business in there, but let's say a business left and somebody totally separate owns the building. He wants to fix it up to make it more attractive, to maybe to get somebody in there. Is there funds for that, or is that just for a business going into?
Yeah, so I don't, from what I know about the bounce back, Main Street bounce back, I don't know that it would be available for landlords to fix up their building. I can check on that and get back to you. I actually learned something last week because somebody inquired about using it to start a food truck business, and my initial reaction was no, but let me ask, and apparently they have expanded the availability to include that. So I will, yeah.
That's interesting.
Yeah,
You can never say no, you never know.
that's right. So I can check into that and get back to you on that.
Thank you.
All right, well, if there's no other questions, so if something comes to mind, you can always give me a call. You know, if I'm not there, I've got the voicemail, you can send me an email. But I really do welcome any ideas that you might have. You know, if you hear about a business that needs some assistance and, you know, you want to help facilitate making that connection, I'm all about that, so, thank you.
Thanks, Dave, for your update. Next on our agenda is to set a date for the next meeting, and I believe. I just
Jeannie,
checked my
before we
calendar.
close,
Oh, I'm sorry.
just so our
Yeah,
new committee
Bob?
just so our new committee members know, it's not just Petrick Park we're involved with. We still kind of overlook Farm Progress Days Park by the county hospital, and we just started a new campground facility down in the lower end of the county in Trempealeau on FEMA land next to where the old swamp bar used to be.
All right.
I think we've got 4 people that have rented lots for a year right now with electricity.
Really? That's good.
Thanks for that reminder, Bob. Okay, I believe our next meeting would be June 7th. This group generally meets the first Tuesday of the month.
Can we hold that at Petrick Park?
Sure.
What time is this one gonna be held at? It seems that, I wanna get the time right this time.
Not only that, there's,
Yeah, see, we all got informed the wrong time, so now we missed the first
I'm
half of the
sorry.
meeting.
The meeting, well, I don't think you missed much, but the meeting starts.
On the
The
calendar, it was
meeting-
9 o'clock.
You are correct. It was 9 o'clock on the calendar. We tried to correct that with, in a couple different emails in the subject line and on the agenda. I apologize for that. It's just kind of what we were hearing from the, I don't know what happened there.
Yeah, we don't have.
call would have been the fastest
yeah.
way to get everybody.
Why
I
didn't
don't
you-
know what happened
Saying,
either,
hey,
because
the-
we
the
have
meeting
always met
changed.
at 8:30.
I haven't even looked at the email yet, because I haven't got my computer.
I got my other job and it's hard, yeah.
Okay. I apologize for that, you know, sometime, and that's one of the challenges in the transition. Some people are email people, some people are phone people, and this is how we're getting to know
Until we
that.
get to that point, and like I said,
Yeah.
once I get my computer,
Right.
I'll check my emails.
Okay.
Right, right.
But
Yeah.
we haven't.
Okay,
Yeah.
this group we will always meet at 8:30 unless there's a reason
Then why
to
does it say
change.
9 o'clock on our agenda? After
I
the
don't
calendar.
I have
you
no
know.
idea. You can blame Paul Severson for that, because he does the calendar.
Yeah, I hear you, I hear you.
Jeannie, we always used to meet at 9 o'clock.
You couldn't
I
wait
know,
15.
but it
I
hasn't
was
been 9
disappointed
o'clock
when we
for a
waited
long
15
time.
minutes. Because Crash, you know
Just
it's
so you know,
coming.
I
We
won't
talked
be at
about
the
it, and I was
meeting,
just
Iowa
driving
State
around.
of
I didn't do-
Wisconsin meeting.
And
Okay.
Kevin, you
all
were
right.
late because you looked at it wrong too. Same thing, so.
So are we all set for June 7th at the park at 8:30?
Yep.
Okay.
Been here.
If there's no other items to discuss, I would move that the meeting end.
Motion to
Is there a
adjourn?
motion to- Okay, is there a second? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming and for your great discussion, and I will see you next month.
Remember that? Nice to meet you.